when WWE fans thought they had seen enough. The came in the tribal chief Roman Reigns. The man who doesn't need to speak to command respect, the head of the table, has once again did something that will forever remind in the history of professional wrestling. I want you to pay close attention to what I'm about to tell you now, because you won't find it anywhere but here on this channel. I did Propel research and I can confidently say it without fear of contradiction, that Roman Reigns is the greatest wrestler of all times. Prove me wrong if I'm wrong. Close whatever else you have open. Silence whatever notification just went off on your phone. Tell whoever is in the room with you that for the next little while you are unavailable. Because what I need to discuss with you today cannot be rushed, cannot be half listened to, and absolutely cannot be skimmed. Because something happened on Monday Night Raw that the wrestling world was not ready for. Not just surprised by, not just shocked by, genuinely, completely, utterly not ready for. And I say that as someone who has been watching professional wrestling since around 2002. Nearly 24 years of studying this product, understanding its patterns, learning its language. 24 years of developing the kind of eye that lets you see things coming before they arrive. The kind of analytical instinct that comes from watching thousands of hours of television and asking, every single time, why is this happening and where does it lead? And even with all of that, even with all 24 years of experience behind me, what happened on Raw left me sitting in front of my screen with my mouth open, genuinely processing whether what I had just witnessed was real. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the OTC, the one true chief. The man who spent over 3 years as the most dominant champion in the history of WWE. The man who redefined what it means to be a villain, what it means to carry a show, what it means to be the axis around which an entire professional wrestling universe revolves. Roman Reigns has won the World Heavyweight Championship. And he did it by going through CM Punk. Let that sit with you for a second. Let the full weight of that sentence land properly before we dive in. Because those words, Roman Reigns, World Heavyweight Championship, CM Punk, Monday Night Raw, 2026, those words together form a sentence that is going to be discussed in professional wrestling conversations for years to come. But that's not even everything we need to cover today, friends. Because on the same night, on this absolutely historic, absolutely wild, absolutely unforgettable edition of Monday Night Raw, we also had the continued fallout of Brock Lesnar's revenge tour on Obafemi. We had Brock Lesnar doing what Brock Lesnar does best. And we had Roman Reigns attacking CM Punk in a fashion that was so brutal, so deliberate, so perfectly executed as a piece of professional wrestling drama that it needs to be broken down completely. This video is going to be thorough. This video is going to be long. This video is going to be worth every single second of your time. Let's tear this apart. Before I get into the specific analysis, before I start breaking down the mechanics and the storytelling implications of everything that happened, I want to spend a moment just acknowledging the raw emotional experience of watching this episode of Raw. Because sometimes in wrestling analysis, and I'm guilty of this occasionally, we rush to the intellectual breakdown before we've properly honored the visceral reaction. Before we've given proper respect to that moment of pure feeling that comes when professional wrestling does something extraordinary. And this episode of Raw produced that feeling in abundance. When Roman Reigns' music hit, when that familiar entrance began, when the tribal chief made his way to the ring with that specific energy that he carries when he knows something is about to happen, when something is about to change, the atmosphere was already crackling. The audience could feel it. You could feel it through the screen. That particular electricity that only appears when someone of Roman Reigns' magnitude is in the building and the story is reaching a critical juncture. And when it was over, when the 3 count happened, when the bell rang, when the realization swept through that arena like a wave, the reaction was something that I genuinely struggle to describe in words. It was that specific, rare mixture of emotions that only professional wrestling can produce. Shock and awe combined. The feeling of watching something you didn't quite believe was coming even though, in retrospect, the pieces were all there. That feeling of the floor shifting beneath you. Of the landscape of the entire product changing in a single moment. WTF is in the title of this video, and friends, for once, that is not hyperbole. That is the only accurate description of the collective reaction of the WWE universe on this night. Now let's figure out exactly what happened, and exactly what it means. To fully appreciate what happened on this Raw, we need to understand the context of Roman Reigns' position coming into this night, and the specific story that placed him in the orbit of the World Heavyweight Championship and CM Punk. Roman Reigns, for those who may need a brief refresher, and I know most of you watching this are well beyond needing one, but I want to be thorough, spent the better part of 2020 through 2023 as the most dominant champion in WWE history. It changed what people believed was possible in terms of building a single character's dominance into something that felt permanent, that felt like a force of nature rather than a storyline decision. When that reign ended, the question that immediately formed in the minds of every wrestling fan was, what comes next? Because Roman Reigns without a championship is still Roman Reigns. He's still the tribal chief. He's still the OTC. He's still the gravitational center of WWE storytelling. But what does his next chapter look like? What is the story WWE tells with the most compelling character they have built in the modern era, now that the ultra-long championship reign has concluded? The answer, it turns out, is that Roman Reigns' next chapter is arguably more interesting than even his legendary title reign. Because a Roman Reigns who is hunting, who is hungry, who is not content to exist as a legend resting on his accomplishments but is instead aggressively pursuing dominance in the current landscape, that Roman Reigns is a different, even more dangerous version of the character. And the World Heavyweight Championship, WWE's primary title on the Raw brand, represents exactly what Roman Reigns needs right now. Not just validation, not just another trophy for his collection, but a statement, a declaration, a proclamation to every single person in the WWE universe that the tribal chief is not done, that the story is not over, that this company, this show, this brand belongs to him and always will. Before Roman Reigns arrived to dismantle it. CM Punk as World Heavyweight Champion is a fascinating thing, because everything about CM Punk's championship reigns carries with them a specific weight that most other champions don't have. When CM Punk holds a title, it means something beyond the physical belt. It means the validation of a specific type of wrestling superstar. The technical, cerebral, character-driven performer who wins not through brute force or physical superiority, but through intelligence, psychology, and an almost supernatural ability to make people care about everything he does. CM Punk's championship reigns always feel earned in a particular way. They feel like the culmination of a specific argument being made. The argument that wrestling is more than muscles and athleticism, that the art of professional wrestling is the art of making people feel things, and that the person who makes people feel things the most intensely is the person who deserves to be at the top of the card. And going into this Raw, CM Punk as World Heavyweight Champion was making that argument convincingly. His character work had been excellent. His in-ring performances had reminded everyone watching, in case anyone had forgotten, that CM Punk is one of the very best professional wrestlers of his generation. His connection with the audience, that specific CM Punk electricity that exists nowhere else in the wrestling business, was operating at a high level. He looked like a champion who was going to have a long, meaningful, story-rich reign. The kind of reign that produces multiple compelling feuds and defines the brand for months. And then Roman Reigns showed up. And in the most Roman Reigns possible fashion, with maximum impact, maximum drama, and the kind of deliberate, calculated devastation that has always defined his best work, he ended that reign. The attack on CM Punk before the championship match is where this story really begins, and I want to spend significant time here because the details matter enormously. Because here's what I want you to understand about how Roman Reigns operates as a character. As a villain specifically, because let's be honest about what Roman Reigns is right now. He is not a hero. He is not even a complicated anti-hero. He is a villain, a sophisticated, compelling, brilliantly executed villain who operates according to a code that is internally consistent even when it's morally reprehensible. Roman Reigns does not attack people randomly. He does not lose his composure and do something impulsive in the heat of a moment. Every act of aggression from Roman Reigns is intentional. Every attack is strategic. Every piece of damage he inflicts serves a purpose that, when you trace it back, makes perfect sense within the logic of his character. So when Roman Reigns targeted CM Punk, when he chose this specific moment to put his hands on the World Heavyweight Champion, It was not because something provoked him in the moment. It was because he had decided. He had calculated. He had determined that this was the right time, the right place, the right target, and the right method of sending a message that the entire WWE universe would receive loud and clear. The attack itself was methodical in a way that was almost more disturbing than if it had been frantic. Frantic violence suggests loss of control. Methodical violence suggests something far more frightening. A man who knows exactly what he's doing and has made peace with it. Roman Reigns worked over CM Punk with the specific purpose of not just causing pain, but causing strategic damage. The kind of damage that impairs a championship performer's ability to compete at full capacity. The kind of damage that shifts the odds before a match has even officially begun. And here's the layer I want you to fully appreciate. Roman Reigns attacked CM Punk before the championship match. That sequencing, the attack first, the championship victory after, tells you everything about Roman's strategy and his psychology as a character. He wasn't trying to steal the championship while Punk was vulnerable. He could have just done that, shown up mid-match, interfered, caused a disqualification situation or a cheap victory that could be questioned. But that's not the Roman Reigns of 2026. The Roman Reigns of 2026 doesn't want to steal the championship. He wants to take it. Decisively. Undeniably. He wanted CM Punk damaged, he wanted the message sent that he had been specifically targeted, and then he wanted to walk into that match against a diminished but still fighting champion, and win cleanly enough that nobody could say it was undeserved. That psychological complexity is exactly what makes Roman Reigns such a fascinating character to analyze. The evil he does is not mindless, it's purposeful. And purposeful evil is the most compelling kind. Let's walk through the championship match itself because despite the pre-match attack, despite the damaged condition CM Punk was competing in, what unfolded between these two men in that ring on this Raw was genuinely, substantively excellent professional wrestling. And I want to credit CM Punk here, because his performance in this match, despite the physical damage he had absorbed, deserves genuine acknowledgement. Here's a principle of great wrestling storytelling. The best championship matches aren't won by the challenger against a healthy opponent. They're won against a champion who fights back with everything he has, who makes the challenger truly earn every single moment of the victory. The most compelling championship changes in wrestling history are the ones where you feel the champion refuse to go down even as the math keeps working against them. CM Punk was exactly that champion in this match. He was hurting. He was compromised. Every wrestling fan watching could see that he was working through genuine damage, that the pre-match attack had left marks that couldn't be hidden. But CM Punk, being CM Punk, did not retreat, did not look for a way out, did not take the kind of shortcuts that a lesser character might use to justify giving less than everything. He fought. He made Roman Reigns work. He made every moment of this championship match feel earned by both men, which is the highest compliment you can pay to a professional wrestling match. The early portion of the match was a study in contrasts that couldn't have been more perfectly constructed if someone had designed it specifically to illustrate the differences between these two competitors. CM Punk's offense. His kicks, his technical combinations, his use of leverage and positioning to compensate for the physical disadvantage against Roman Reigns' raw power, his calculated deliberateness, his ability to simply absorb a CM Punk offensive sequence and respond with something that reminded everyone in that building of the physical differential. And that physical differential matters. This is something I always come back to in my analysis, because professional wrestling is a visual medium and the visual story has to make sense. When CM Punk and Roman Reigns are in the same ring, Roman looks like a man who should be able to physically impose his will. That's not a knock on CM Punk. It's a recognition of how their physical profiles create an inherent visual narrative that the audience reads instinctively. But here's what CM Punk has always done better than almost anyone else in the history of professional wrestling. He takes that physical differential and turns it into story fuel. He uses the visual of being outmatched physically to make his refusal to quit feel more heroic, his near falls feel more dramatic, his moments of offensive success feel more earned and more explosive in the audience's emotional response. The near falls in this match were incredible, each one genuinely threatening, each one drawing the kind of crowd reaction that tells you the audience is fully, completely bought in, not just watching but caring, not just present but invested. That's the magic of great professional wrestling, and this match had it in abundance. Then came the finish. And the finish, the way Roman Reigns won the World Heavyweight Championship, was so perfectly executed, so completely in character, so entirely consistent with everything Roman Reigns has ever been as a villain in WWE, that even as your jaw was dropping, some part of your brain was saying, of course that's how it happened. Couldn't have happened any other way. I want to describe the specific energy of the championship moment, because I think it's important to capture what the audience in that arena and at home experienced in real time. The 3 count, the bell ring, the announcement, and new World Heavyweight Champion Roman Reigns. The arena's reaction was extraordinary in its complexity, because Roman Reigns has always generated this specific kind of audience response that defies simple categorization. The traditional wrestling framework tells you that heels, villains, get booed. They get heat. The crowd expresses its disapproval. But Roman Reigns has never been a simple heel, and the crowd has never given him a simple reaction. What he gets is louder than a boo, more complicated than a cheer, more intense than either. He gets the kind of reaction that happens when a character is so compelling, so well constructed, so genuinely fascinating as a piece of storytelling that the audience's emotional response transcends the simple hero versus villain framework. There were boos, yes, from people who love CM Punk, from people who feel the injustice of what Roman did, from people who needed to express their objection to the manner in which this title change occurred. But there were also cheers. From people who simply cannot help responding to Roman Reigns with admiration for the excellence of the character. From people who, even knowing they're not supposed to cheer the villain, find themselves unable to suppress the reaction. From people who recognize that they are watching one of the all-time great characters in professional wrestling history at the height of his powers. And there was something else in that building, something harder to define. Call it awe, call it recognition, the acknowledgement that something significant had just happened, that the landscape of WWE had shifted in a real and meaningful way, that the story of Monday Night Raw in 2026 had just entered a dramatically new chapter. The image of Roman Reigns holding the World Heavyweight Championship, standing in the center of that ring, the gold belt reflecting the arena lights, the tribal chief looking out at the WWE universe with that specific expression that communicates absolute certainty, absolute confidence, absolute ownership, that image is already iconic. That image is already the kind of thing that will be shown in highlight packages for years to come. And what made that image even more powerful was what immediately followed. Because Roman Reigns winning the championship was not the end of the story on this Raw. It was, in many ways, just the beginning. What Roman Reigns did after winning the World Heavyweight Championship, the specific choices he made in those moments immediately following the bell, tells you everything you need to know about where this character is headed and what the next phase of the story looks like. He didn't celebrate the way most championship winners celebrate. There was no extended pyro sequence of running around the ring, no jumping on the turnbuckle with the belt raised for extended adulation from the crowd, no tearful microphone segment about how hard he worked to get here and how much this means to him. Roman Reigns celebrated the way Roman Reigns has always celebrated his most significant victories, with a controlled, almost meditative acknowledgement of what he had accomplished, combined with a very deliberate sending of a specific message to everyone who was watching. The acknowledgement, the one the Bloodline era made famous, that specific gesture that became one of the most recognizable images in wrestling, delivered not as an invitation but as a declaration.